Crossovers have been the bread and butter of both the Hollywood industry with films and also the gaming industry for probably decades. When it seems like there's nowhere else to take a franchise for a little while, you cross it over with something else. Freddy versus Jason, Alien versus Predator, you throw a versus in there, and you got yourself a movie. When it comes to Venom, this has been an interesting question being asked for a long time. Ever since Tom Hardy was actually cast in the role, the question has been, okay, but where's Spider-Man? Today I'd like to talk about whether or not Venom and Spider-Man actually should cross over in the live action. Now keep in mind, I have no say in this, just a fan talking about it. And my wonderful wife Jill is here with me.
Hello!
And we are both fans of these characters, so before we hop into it, be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more content if you enjoy what we talk about on this channel. Movies, movie news, video games, video game news, toys,
The
toy
length
reviews.
of Venom's tongue.
Well, the length of Venom's other parts, lots of stuff on this channel. We hope you'll enjoy. Let's hop into it. Now, it is worth mentioning before we get into this that the statements so far from everyone, at least involved in the Venom movies, have been, yes, this will happen. Because there have been multiple statements on this, actually, over time. Tom Hardy was actually recently asked about this as well, with an interview with IGN, where he had said, because they had asked, they want to know when Venom is going to meet Spider-Man, and he had said, personally, it's never going to happen. I'm only joking, of course it's going to happen. I think there's so much. It depends on what or when you want to get there, and also what that appetite is. If people want more Venom stories, then to jump straight to Spider-Man, you could be missing out on so many great supervillain characters in between now and then. But yes, everyone wants to see Venom fight Spider-Man, so I think it's appetite. He went on to actually say, there's a Venom-verse, there's a Spider-Verse, and there's multiverses. There's all kinds of canon and lore and mythology to explore, both laterally and forward in time. I think with the right people and the right planning and feedback from the audience and understanding it's about making the right choices at the right time, even with the foresight of understanding, geez, he's like over-explaining like Degenerate Jay does.
Yeah, he is.
Even with the foresight of understanding where things may go already or they wish to go, it's a combination of all those in the alchemy of what it will be. I feel like he cast a spell somewhere in there. It's quite a bit.
I feel like he wrote an entire book and they just had to cut it down for the article.
Yeah, he did. He came prepared with a hardcover.
Yeah.
The Venom director had also talked about a crossover with Tom Holland's Spider-Man, and this was in the past, actually. Back in 2019, when he talked to Fandom, he had said that a Spider-Man Venom face-off is where it's all going to lead. He added, and that's the exciting things because we changed the origin of Venom. In the comics, he evolved from Spider-Man, but because of the Marvel Sony thing, we weren't able to do that. And so the thing I think it's building towards and will be exciting to see is when they actually do confront each other.
The thing with Spider-Man and Venom here, too, is I think if they're going to put them in a movie together and have them eventually build up to a fight, they're going to have to connect them somehow. Like, there's got to be a reason why Venom would want to fight Spider-Man. Obviously Spider-Man would probably see him as a villain and be like, well, I'm little New York's do-gooder, time to kick some butt.
Yeah, because he would prejudge, he'd prejudicedly look at him and see his big ugly teeth and think like, oh, that's a villain.
Yeah.
But Spider-Man's a good guy in that way.
Then Venom would have to, he'd have to have something going on. He'd either have to be doing something bad in Spider-Man's territory or, they'd have to come up with like an interesting story to it, and I don't know if they'd be able to.
Here's my issue with it, because I do think a fight between these two would be awesome, and also an eventual team-up. Mm-hmm. Because the way Venom worked in the comics was very different, like they said. It started with the black suit, the alien symbiote suit, on Peter Parker. He didn't understand what it was. He actually got it, I believe, on Battleworld, back in the Secret Wars comics. I have that issue, actually, on my wall, because I love that suit.
You nerd.
First appearance of the black suit. It's one of my favorite things I have. But with that suit, it slowly devolved over time in terms of he found out it was an alien symbiote, like a parasite, and that it was going to try and permanently bond him. Then he consulted the Fantastic Four. He got rid of it. It went on Eddie Brock. There was a whole vendetta, and then Venom was after Spider-Man, trying to kill him for quite a while. A lot of people seem to forget that as lovable as Venom is now and has been for the last several decades in comics, he was a straight up villain at first. He was not an anti-hero. He was a villain.
That's a KDA song.
And that is a KDA song with Madison Beer, the hottie McHottie.
She is a hottie McHottie.
Eventually, this character changed over time. He came to an understanding with Spider-Man. They worked out essentially deals, and they even teamed up a lot of times and would slowly become allies over the years. Mm. What I'm getting at with all of that, with that Tom Hardy level explanation, is there is a lot of comics history with Venom and Spider-Man, and there is none here. Zero.
They'd have to find a way to make that connection and make a new story that connected them really well and take it slow and not just rush it in like an hour and a half movie. You know, because, I mean, I'm not going to say that like Black Widow was rushed, but it felt a little rushed. And I feel like the story could have been much more impactful had they fleshed it out a bit more. And I don't want them to do that with like a Venom and Spider-Man thing, you know?
Yeah, you don't want them to rush it or you don't want to BVS it.
Yeah,
where like all of a sudden there's a conflict right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, no offense to BVS fans. I like that movie too in its own way, but I do think that you have that problem with a lot of these versus movies. You know, so that's the thing, like, if we run through these, not that this has to be a versus, but Alien versus Predator, Freddy versus Jason, even Batman versus Superman, there's no, I guess, really conflict between these characters, and then all of a sudden there is, and you have to build up that conflict over the course of that movie. The benefit that those movies had, to varying degrees of quality, was that for at least the horror icons, there was not a pre-existing history that they had to work around. Mm-hmm. They just got to sort of do their own thing, right? Mm-hmm. And make it up as they go. With this, I think you do kind of have that issue of not only do you have to write a new story that makes sense, it can't be that Peter Parker fought in the Secret Wars, found the symbiote, then somehow it ended up on Eddie Brock in an alternate dimension. Yeah, that doesn't work because they're different continuities right now.
If they do, like, kind of follow that story, a lot of fans will feel like it's a weird random retcon.
You can't anymore because like he hasn't been Spider-Man long enough. It doesn't work. And Venom,
I mean, they didn't even show us that when he got bit by a spider. They didn't show us much of his origin at all.
Yeah, Sony kind of and Marvel kind of jumped past it because they showed it to us more times than they needed to. You know, with obviously Toby and then Andrew, and now we were on Tom. Mm-hmm. And it was one of those things where it was like, we don't need to show this again. Mm-hmm. I'm fine with that. I actually like that because we know what happened.
Yeah.
You know, good enough. I don't care. I don't need to, it's the same thing with Bruce Wayne. I don't need to see his parents gunned down every 2 minutes to know what happened to Batman. If it's different, you know, like 89 Batman with Keaton, where it's actually the Joker back when he was young is the killer in that, not Joe Chill. You know, that's kind of the connection between those two characters where it was just completely changed. Mm-hmm. Fine, show it. But if it's not that, I don't think we need it. But that's the thing, is this connection now between these two characters of Spider-Man and Venom will be completely different. And I think that with that, I don't know how you do this when you're already building Venom up to be an anti-hero. Like he's kind of a good guy in his movie. He's not really a bad guy. He is for like 30 minutes.
I think they'd have to make Eddie Brock sort of have like some sort of mental break with the symbiote and have the symbiote kind of corrupting him in some sort of bad way. Yeah,
or you have to have a complete misunderstanding between Spider-Man and Venom.
Yeah.
In which case neither of them is a bad guy, I guess. Uh-huh. I suppose you could just not have them face each other. You could have like an initial misunderstanding fight and then have them team up. This is all coming up, by the way, without getting into spoilers, because of this is a potential spoiler for upcoming Marvel movies. So if you don't want to hear anything about this, you can skip ahead like 30 seconds, okay? Mm-hmm. I gave you your warning. There was a leaked potential spoiler that this crossover will happen sooner than later. There was a leaked potential spoiler reported by, I believe, Grace Randolph on YouTube from Beyond the Trailer and some other channels, that there will be a post-credits scene. I don't know if it's supposedly in Venom or in Spider-Man, where it shows Eddie Brock in that universe.
That's exciting.
Now, I don't know if that's going to happen, but that is why we brought this up.
Yeah, I know exactly how they can do this conflict thing. Is everyone ready for my idea?
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So, Spider-Man...
Is it going to be, like, politically incorrect or something? Do we have to cut this?
No.
Okay.
Spider-Man changes his last name to Kelly, and he takes on a pseudonym.
He's R. Kelly?
Machine Gun.
Oh, okay.
And
oh, but Venom representing the hit rapper Eminem in
Yes.
the song Venom
yes, and then
must defend his label.
and then Spider-Man goes off on Twitter and is mean about his daughter.
Okay.
So then Eminem goes back at his daughter,
Yeah,
and then they have
Venom.
a fight of the daughters.
You mean Venom M?
Yeah, Venom M.
Venom M. Yeah, no. Venom Eminem.
That, and then Eminem makes
Let there
another
be
song.
carnage and let there be carnage.
Carnage,
There's no way home with the carnage.
Carnage.
I think that is the best idea ever.
Thank you.
I guess for me, this whole thing is I would like to see this, but we're at the point where this almost seems like pure fan service, which I'm okay with. You know, maybe I'm in the minority. Well, no, I'm not on this. I don't think. I know some people are tired of the fan servicey stuff with Marvel already.
I think sometimes it can be a good thing.
I think it's usually a good thing. I mean, like, you know, for example, like if you want to, in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, throw in Tobey Maguire Spider-Man and say, no, that's a multiverse, that's a variant.
That's cool.
I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
If you want to throw in the Fox X-Men and say, no, that's a multiverse variant, I think that's cool. I think
it ties in all those other things that they didn't own previously, too, which I think is awesome.
Even Nick Cage Ghost Rider.
Yeah.
I don't care. Throw it in there. Like, you know, I like that stuff. I don't like it when there's no point, though. Like, so for me, if you are going to cross over Venom and Spider-Man, and you're going to completely go around the black suit saga of, like, the symbiote and everything, which was emotional, you better have a good reason for doing that, for just subverting that good storyline. Because they have done this before. They did this with the Mandarin in Iron Man 3. They subverted the storyline. I'm one of the few people it didn't piss off, but I still think there was no point to go around that storyline. And then they did the same thing with Iron Man 2 with the whole demon in a bottle thing, where Tony Stark was a raging alcoholic in the comics. Like, he had a real hard time. He was addicted to drinking, and it was a huge emotional arc in the comics that we never got. We never got it in the movies because it was too dark, and
he like drinks all the way up until like Endgame,
and he was too mature. Well, yeah, but like he did drink heavily in 2, which was inspired by Demon in a Bottle, obviously, but it was just to, 1, to cope with dying, and 2, to kind of control the poison in his blood veins from the reactor. But what I'm getting to with all of this is they've done this before, where they kind of go towards an arc that people think will be cool. Then they, you know, like basically veer around it and say, no, we did something different. Isn't that cool? It's almost never liked more.
Yeah, instead of using the comics as like a guideline, which I think is what they should do, they often just try to go so differently and go around it and pretend like that's not going to happen.
The Mandarin we saw in Iron Man 3, Taskmaster from Black Widow.
Taskmaster was such a wow.
That was a big disappointment. And I'm not even a huge Taskmaster fan. I just think he's cool. I can't imagine being a fan of him.
He was done better for like the small segment he was in Spider-Man Insomniacs.
Yeah, the
PS4 game. Yeah.
It's sad. But like, you know, I'm not saying you can't change things. You know, the Loki stuff with the multiverse from that show is very different. A lot of the WandaVision stuff, how it was handled, was different.
It was awesome, too.
Endgame, Tony Stark being pretty much just written out of this universe now, was different. And this stuff was handled well. But I think that when you're tackling something with so much comics history like this,
you need good writers.
Yeah, and you have a history of like trying to veer around those comics written things and change them, and a lot of people don't like those changes. I don't know how well that'll go over. I hope it will. You know,
hey, maybe they will give Spider-Man a demon in a bottle, and he'll drink so much that he'll
drink the Venom symbiote. He'll be like, "Ooh, this is nice goo," and he'll drink it. He thinks it's like a sex performance enhancing drug, so he can be with Michelle Jones.
I was just gonna
in the college years, of course.
I was just gonna say that Venom was gonna be a hallucination from him being too drunk.
Oh man! And then you find out that Venom's name is actually
Tom Shardy?
No, it's V.B. Boner. He's a relative of Ralph Boner. It stands for
sense.
Very Big Boner.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that's what he was called in high school. This whole thing about should it happen or not, I come down to if there is really good writing around this that will enhance both of these characters, yes. I think that if they are then beholden to each other in future stories, probably not. You know, Venom should have some connection to Spider-Man. I always thought he should. That is the history of the character. It always has been. He can exist outside of him, but to completely remove that, I don't see the point. And if they could establish that again in a new way, that would be awesome. That's what I want out of these multiverse things, is like the ability, like, and I'll shut up in just a second, Jill, but the ability to see, to see Hugh Jackman's Wolverine show up in a project and then go away. You know what I mean? Or the ability to see Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man show up in a project and we know his whole history. And then we know, oh, he was also in this and he goes back to his world. You can it's like taking your toys out of the dollhouse or out of the closet, playing with them together, and then putting them away back in a box. You know what I'm saying? You can kind of mix and match these universes as long as it benefits the story and character building. Then you put it away and you continue in a organic fashion that works for them.
I think also the thing with Spider-Man Venom too is if it's gonna be a good movie, they have to stop being afraid of making things dark.
Oh, you're saying the PG-13 route?
I am so sick of the PG-13 route. That's why they didn't put the demon in the bottle thing with Iron Man. People are annoyed about it because it's PG-13. And that's why, like, the first Venom movie was not as dark as it should have been, in my opinion.
I still think that movie comes off as if someone yanked 20 minutes out of the middle of the movie and also cut out every brutal death.
Yeah. And it's kind of odd. I just feel like if they're going to make that movie, they need to not be afraid to go a little bit further.
Well, and people keep using Tom Hardy's words to misrepresent those movies. Like, oh, it was never supposed to be rated R. But, like, Tom Hardy had advocated for that movie to be dark and to be, like an edgy, like, not like an edgelord thing here or anything, but like a dark, edgy exploration of Venom. And he talks about how much his kids love Venom. So people misrepresent that as like, well, he said that he made Venom for his kids and that he didn't want it to be dark. But like one of his first quotes after getting the role was that he wanted it to be a dark and, grim exploration of Venom.
The thing is, you can also make a dark, edgy, grim story without it being too rated R. I mean, there's lots of teen novels that are very dark and grim and edgy, and they probably wouldn't push past the PG-13 rating. You can do that, it's just you have to be subtle about it.
Well, and I think Endgame, Infinity War, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Captain America, Winter Soldier, all four of those things, at the very least, proved that Marvel can do that, even without crossing R.
Yeah.
So if they can do that in here,
that would be great.
And if I can stop watching Venom and, like when there's future movies and feeling like, oh, that was edited down. Oh, I can tell they cut away from that on purpose to not get an R rating. Oh, you know what I mean?
Yeah. You're not supposed to be able to tell those things.
No, there's whole things in Venom 1, and I'd be interested to see if the writing was just drastically changed over the course of the movie, because I know Tom Hardy got pissed at the writing and walked away. There was reports about that he would like leave the set pissed off and say, write this better, and then come back.
Good, he should have.
And, when I'm watching that movie and we go from in one scene, the Venom symbiote basically saying that he doesn't like Eddie Brock and that he's like annoying, to I like you, Eddie, within like 15 minutes, and there's no character development during that time.
It's too fast.
It comes off like they yanked 20 minutes out of the movie.
Yeah.
I seriously think that movie somehow had 20 to 25 minutes yanked, with like a good 15 minutes being in the second act.
The thing is, if they're going to pull 20 to 25 minutes of the movie out because it's too much, refilm it. Make it not too much. Make those elements of the story still be there and not have as much, I don't know, whatever you had there, blood, death.
Or do what you suggested this to me the other day, and we'll talk about this for a second and then wrap it up because we're approaching 20 minutes. I think Hollywood, I need to disclaim, Hollywood can use this badly. They use unrated and extreme cuts poorly. Sometimes they add little to nothing to the movie, and they repackage them to resell the movie like a dick. But I do think that there is an idea in here where The Wolverine is a perfect example of this to me, of a movie I think is okay for the theatrical, but really good for the unrated cut. It didn't add that much, but it added in some blood again, some language. It made it feel more like it was pushing towards R instead of just PG-13, and they had cut that stuff for theatrical. If you want the version of Venom, Let There Be Carnage your kids can see, fine, PG-13, but why don't you throw that stuff, that extra 6 minutes back in or whatever for adult fans, and then it's unrated?
Yeah, I mean, like, the entire idea I had come up with was I was like, why don't they have the theatrical cut be PG-13, an edited down version of the rated R, and then they have the rated R version and they put it on Blu-ray or 4K or DVD and call it a director's cut.
Yeah, whatever.
Because they get double the money from that, I think.
Well, we see that with like the Snyder Cut.
Yeah.
A lot of these movies, if you don't have to do tons of VFX work on those extra scenes, you know, or if you had already done it and you ended up pulling them out and then you put them back in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's like the easiest thing
ever. It's just paying an editor or a team of editors to change the movie up.
Yeah.
That's it. I think that that's a good idea. I think that most of the time those enhanced cuts are usually better. If you want to see a great example of that, Aliens. Sorry, I keep talking about Aliens on this channel.
We watched them recently.
We did, yeah.
He's obsessed.
But like, the director's cut of that, the cut from James Cameron, is a lot better than the theatrical. They're both great, but it only added in like 15 minutes.
And James Cameron said himself in like the beginning of that, he was like, this is what I wanted to be shown as the theatrical cut.
BVS is very clearly the same example. You think Zack Snyder wanted them to see the theatrical? No, it's way worse. The ultimate cut, yeah, I get it. It's too long, Jay. It's too long. Still added in a lot of storyline that was needed for that movie to work. I think that sometimes those extended cuts, adding back in that stuff, same with the Wolverine, they can actually make the experience very different and much better.
It's really subtle because, like, as an artist, you know, when you make things, you can make like a drawing or an earring or some sort of thing, and you can just add a little bit of a finishing touch to it and it'll make it look 20,000 times better. And it's the same thing with movies. You know, if you just add a couple more things, you can make it way better. Yeah,
I mean, there's certainly things that are cut for a reason, but I think that should kind of be on the director and the team of writers to decide. You know, if you want to cut Anakin visits Padme's house in Attack of the Clones because it's boring. No, but it was a real travesty, though. She was in a gorgeous outfit during that scene. It was cut. Everyone deserves to see that scene. But, because it's boring or whatever, you cut that. Things that ruin the pacing of the movie, you cut those. But if it's necessary for the film to work or for the character, I always say do what works for the character. I can't see a great Wolverine movie at PG-13. I cannot see a great Deadpool movie at PG-13. And we saw that with Venom. It ended up being fun, but it could have been fantastic.
Yeah, and you don't really think about it again. The thing I like about a lot of those darker movies is they often leave you with something to think about for a while. And I mean, maybe a lot of other people don't want to have to think after a movie. Personally, I think that's fun.
Yeah, I think there's there's different types of movies, and I think that there's nothing wrong with doing both. I think the MCU has been criticized for that a lot, of not having deeper meanings. But again, some of the best movies in it, the first Iron Man, Captain America and the Winter Soldier, some of those movies do have a lot of deeper themes and meanings going on that do, leave the audience thinking about them. If you think about it, those ones I just listed, they are considered some of the best movies they've made. Civil War, too. Anyways, this is kind of our thoughts on Venom versus Spider-Man. I think we're both at the point of, if you're going to do it, write it well, and I'd love to watch it. But if it's just happening just to happen, I'm okay. Be sure to check out everything in the description down below. We've got everything down there. The secondary channel, Degenerate Plays. We hang out, play a lot of games, talk to you there. Hope to see you over there, because that channel, it struggles a little bit, and it is really fun, and we want you to hang out with us. Also, we have the Patreon down there, social medias, everything else.
Enchanted Glamor.
Yeah, my wife's wonderful, beautiful shop is down there as well.
Please buy from my failing business.
It's not failing.
Please.
It's not failing.
I haven't had a sale in like a month. And everyone, stay away. I
feel like you're like weird Pennywise that, like the version that doesn't like abduct kids to kill them. He abducts them for other reasons.
Yeah, you're right.